Welcome into the latest edition of the Draft Academy podcast. Your host, Brandon Kravitz, here along with a very special guest, former Florida Gator quarterback and the host of the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast, Shane Matthews. Welcome to the show. Excited to chat with you. Stressful times right now in Gator Nation.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Yeah, it's crazy right now.
Tell our audience here what you've been up to lately, the podcast you've got going on, your Gator Network involvement. You're wearing a lot of hats these days.
I do. I became the color analyst on the broadcast about 3.5, 4 years ago. Had no background in it. They just asked me if I wanted to do it. I was like, sure. I also been doing my podcast. Started right before COVID hit, so about 5 years now. No background in that either. I did a lot of pregame and postgame shows for Gator football, and had somebody approach me about doing a podcast. I was like, no, I'm the analyst. We need somebody to host it. But they said, you'll be fine. It was rough at first, but we've been plugging along, and it's doing really, really well. And then I work for a sporting goods company called Baker Sporting Goods, where we outfit thousands of high school travel teams with their uniforms, equipment, you name it. We do a lot of colleges as well. So that keeps me busy also.
When you started a podcast at the perfect time, right before the pandemic, when everybody figured out this is something that I want to get into, and we've certainly seen podcasts balloon up in terms of overall volume of content that's out there. What gave you the broadcasting itch? Because it seems like overnight you, like I said, wear a lot of hats, and it's a lot of big opportunities. Your podcast numbers, your YouTube subscribers, the numbers way up. Being involved with the Gator broadcasts, what gave you the itch to do that, and what keeps you going in it?
Well, like I said, I guess for the last 10 to 15 years, I've always done a couple of shows, pregame shows, the Monday after the Gator game shows with a local guy, Steve Russell, here at ESPN Gainesville, recapping the game. And, he's the host. It's his show. So I just came in as the so-called analyst, give my opinion, answer questions for people. And I was approached by Freddie Weeby, like I said, right before COVID hit, about doing my own podcast, because he was he reads a lot of data or information and grabs data from here and there, and said, this is the way the world is moving to podcasts. So I feel like we kind of got in it early, and we've grown. I've gotten better. I've gotten better guests. We've got a pretty good program, a lot of following around the country, around the world. So it's fun. I mean, football season is easy to do. It's those rough months in the summer.
Amen to that.
Talk about baseball or any of that stuff. It's sometimes it's hard to do a show.
Yeah, then you have to keep the train moving. So I know that life all too well. But I brought you here to talk about performance, recovery, optimization, and all of that. And we'll get to that. But got to talk about what's happening on the field right now. How disappointed are you in the fight and resolve that this Gator team is showing right now?
Well, it's been rough the last 3 or 4 years. Losing records is something that we're not used to. Florida football has been being played for a long, long time. They really only had about a 20 to 25 year period where they had a lot of success with some Hall of Fame coaches and Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. So it's been tough. We're just not a very good football team. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Rough on the coaching staff as well. It's just a bad combination right now, and it looks like we'll be having a new coach next year.
And it does seem like that is the fix-all for fans out there, is they think, okay, the team's no good. The only way to cure this is through firing the coach. But is that what's best for the program right now, moving off of Billy Napier, whenever that is, whether it's next week or it's at the end of the year? Is that the cure-all that people think it is?
Well, I think what fans and myself included look at is, has anything changed? Has there been any improvement, any progression, in 2 years and 3 games? And it's kind of been the same, I guess. Whether that's coaching, whether it's players, player development, the right kind of players for your system. Honestly, sports is all about producing. not so much about, I mean, obviously you want to win football games, but you got to have some production, some execution. And we've been lacking in that, whether it's the player's fault, the coach's fault. Like I said, it's just not getting done. And so I think when it's not getting done and you don't see that, there has to be a change.
Has Billy Napier wrapped his arms around the Gainesville community, Gator Nation? It does feel like I'm in Orlando. I'm not too far away, but it feels like there's a disconnect. Like fans don't love him on a personal level. Do you? And then that makes it easier to say, okay, he's not the guy. Got to move on. Do you get that same feeling as well? Like it's Billy Napier over here, Gator Nation over here.
Well, I think it's all about wins and losses, quite honestly. I don't talk to Billy a lot, but when I do, and what I know about him and how he's treated me, he's a tremendous human being. I mean, I've seen him talk to people that he just met, and he's very engaged in the conversation, asking about their kids, their family, whatever. He's a good man. It just hasn't worked out here for whatever. I think if we were winning football games, the Gator Nation people would love him. But for whatever reason, it's just it hasn't worked. And I mean, quite honestly, it hasn't worked for the last 4 or 5 coaches here. And I don't know why that is, but we got to hopefully eventually find the right guy.
Do you think DJ Lagway is someone that has a promising future? He came in with all of this acclaim, number 1 recruit at the quarterback position. He's looked decent. Has not been given maybe the most advantageous situation. Looked good against Samford, which is easier to do. But I would be concerned for the Gators if Billy Napier is gone. That's the guy that Lagway had committed to. Do you like what you've seen in Lagway? And should there be a concern among Gator Nation that Lagway will leave if Napier is inevitably fired?
Well, I think DJ, we all know about his high school career, and he's looked good at times. As you said, he's looked like a true freshman at times. And, in the practices that I saw, I didn't think he was ready. Played really well against Samford, as you stated, but Samford is not a very good football team, and it's a very low level. Struggled against A&M like I figured he would. He's got a lot of potential. There's no question. He's just not ready right now. And, I tell people there's a lot of quarterbacks out there. There's a lot of good players around the country. The new coach, whoever it may be, may love DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway may like that style of play for that coach. Or the coach may say, you know what, I'm bringing in my own quarterbacks. In today's world, it's so different now where kids can just kind of move around whenever they want. So, I mean, obviously, we would love for DJ Lagway to continue being a Gator regardless of who the next coach is. But in today's world, you just really don't know what's going to happen.
If the portal was an option when you were playing, would you have tried to put your name in the hat at any point?
Yes. I didn't play it down my first 2 years here. And my dad played football at Ole Miss. So I wanted to transfer back to Ole Miss because I grew up being an Ole Miss Rebel. But my parents were like, no, you're not transferring. I could have gone in the portal. I could transfer, but I would have had to sit out a year. They're like, no, we don't care if you ever play it down. You committed to the University of Florida. You're going to graduate from there. And so they kind of made that decision for me. And then thankfully, a guy named Steve Spurrier was hired as that coach, and he gave me an opportunity, and I was able to play for him for 3 years.
Is that a cautionary tale for kids out there that want to immediately jump in the portal because they're not playing right away? And you go down as one of the greatest Gators to ever wear the orange and blue, and you didn't have this. You like you just said, you would have, excuse me, you would have jumped into the portal if you could play right away. You didn't have the opportunity to do that back in your playing days. Is that a story that you would share with a high school to a freshman college athlete as they make their way into this journey?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, my story's a little bit different. Everybody's story is different or situation. Quarterback is a weird deal because only one guy can play, right? If you're a receiver, you can work your way into the rotation because usually you play 6 to 7 receivers. Same way with linemen or linebackers. But at quarterback, you can only put one dude out on the field. So everybody wants to play. And if there's a situation where you're buried on the depth chart and maybe there's a coach at another school that believes in you that's going to give you an opportunity, I don't have a problem with the guy transferring. Now, these guys that go from school to school to school, like have played four different schools in 4 years, that's a red light. I mean, something is wrong there. I don't buy that at all. Um, I don't agree with it, and I hate it. But that's the world we live in today.
Let's dig into your playing days a bit. You were a prolific passer in that Steve Spurrier offense. What did he do to make your life easy as a passer?
Well, I was fortunate. I'm a coach's son, so X's and O's come pretty natural to me. I just really clicked with Coach when he first got here. His playbook made sense to me, and I was very accurate. I was a pretty good decision maker, and if you do those two things, you can play for him. All his quarterbacks in his 12 years at Florida were all about the same kind of guy. None of us were these tremendous athletes with these great arms and could run over people. We were just smart, good throwers of the football. And, that's why I lasted 14 years in the National Football League, is because of him teaching me the passing game and how to attack certain coverages. Where's the weakness of every defense? And why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? That's the only reason I lasted in the NFL as long as I did.
What did a typical week of preparation for you look like during your playing days? Start at the beginning of the week and then leading up into Saturday.
Well, Coach Spurrier is different than most people. We didn't even have a playbook. We had usually 3 to 4 sheets of white typing paper with a bunch of little boxes and his handwriting in each little box stapled together. That was our playbook.
What?
And honestly, I never looked at it. I was blessed. I don't have a photographic memory, but when it comes to football plays, I can look at a play one time and I never have to look at it again. I can tell you what everybody's going to do, what their responsibility and their assignments are. Mondays we had, it was more like a walkthrough practice for the starters. They had what they call Monday Night Football, where a lot of the backups, young freshmen, they had a scrimmage. They called it Monday Night Football, and they would scrimmage at night. And then Tuesdays, just a normal day, we'd have a 30, 40-minute meeting and go practice. Nowadays they meet for hours and hours and hours. I don't understand it. I think it's overkill. But then, after practice, we didn't meet. They meet now after practice. Coach Spurrier did it a different way. And then he and I, or whoever the quarterbacks were after me, we would meet together, usually on, I think it was Friday mornings, in his office for about 20 minutes and just go through the plan, just talking. And is there anything you don't like? I won't call. Because as a play caller, you can't call something that your quarterback's not comfortable with or doesn't believe in. But that's it. I mean, from a preparation standpoint, we watched a little bit of tape, but we were more concerned about us than anything. But what I loved about playing for Steve Spurrier is we threw routes on air for about an hour, meaning it was quarterbacks and some receivers, not all the receivers, because they're on special teams and other deal going on in practice, or we'd have our student managers stand at different spots for the different route combinations. And we would just drop back throwing. And that's how you learn your spacing, your timing, and your accuracy. And teams don't do that anymore. And I don't understand why.
I've heard Steve Spurrier say that back in the day, his nutritionist was him, and he used to walk around the hall and make sure that everybody in the dining room was eating vegetables they had some green on their plate, and that was it. Can you back that up and confirm that Steve Spurrier's walking around making sure that everyone's not eating like complete garbage?
Yes. So back in those days, it was like a cafeteria style where the athletes ate, and Coach would, it would mainly be for the big guys, right? He'd walk by their table to see if they got some greens with salad or green beans or something healthy. And I kid you not, the linemen, they were always had their head on a swivel waiting for Coach to come by. And if you had fried chicken or chicken breast or whatever it is that day, they've been known to take those chicken breasts when they saw Coach coming and stick them in their pockets, get off the plates. And then once Coach was gone by, they put them back on their plates. So, Coach, we didn't have any of that stuff back in the day. Nowadays, man, the The most I ever weighed at the University of Florida was 190, 180 pounds. My senior year, I was 170 my sophomore year playing, 175 my junior. I got up to a whopping 180, and I used to try everything. I mean, 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a glass of whole milk before you go to bed at night. None of that worked. Nowadays, every few minutes they're bringing these kids smoothies, and it's nuts what they do. But yeah, Coach was a character when it came to what you eat.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the way that these nutrition plans operate now as compared to what you just said? Hey, you have any green on your plate? What else are they doing and that you've seen that kind of blows you away that this is how time is spent in 2024 as far as nutrition, supplements, and things of that nature?
I go to some practices, and like I said, in the facility there, obviously they got this state of the art cafeteria, dining hall, whatever you want to call it. And they got prime rib, carving stations, fillets, grilled chicken. I mean, it's nuts. But they also have the smoothie places where this player needs a smoothie to gain X amount of pounds. This guy needs this to lose some weight. And then during some of the water breaks now, they have different type of Gatorades with stuff put in them, and then they bring them fruit cups and this during practice. It's nuts. Obviously, I would have loved to have played back in today's world, because maybe it would have helped me gain some weight and be in better shape. But it's crazy what goes on today.
If you could go back to your college self, looking at how you train and prepare for a season, for a game, what's the first bit of information that you would give to a young Shane Matthews to say, hey, maybe we need to do this differently, knowing what I know now?
I would do everything differently. And I think Coach Spurrier would make us do things differently. All we had to do before training camp was you had to run a 12-minute run, meaning 12 minutes, but you had to run, depending on your position group, you had to run a certain amount of laps around a track. And we ran a little bit with our strength and conditioning. It's nothing like what they do now. And I mean, I could make it easily. Coach didn't make the quarterbacks really lift weights. All we were supposed to do is jump rope. We had like a jump rope program, because playing quarterback, people don't realize you have to have good feet to play quarterback. So we had to jump rope a lot, and then we did these basketball tosses about 3 yards from a brick wall for your what he called your hand muscles. And honestly, that's about all I did. I didn't bench press. I didn't squat. I didn't do anything. And I would love to have gone back if I was doing it again. And I would work out, because it may have helped me get drafted in the NFL. I was an undrafted free agent, but it may have helped me in my career. I do wish I would have done that stuff, but all he wanted us to do was jump rope and do our b-ball tosses. And so that's what I wish I could go back and change that.
Have you had a conversation with Spurrier about that in more recent time? About, like you said, it would be kind of something that he would want to do differently too. Has he admitted regret and just not knowing, just the ignorance of how little we knew 30, 40 years ago?
Not that he didn't know. That's just all he cared about his quarterbacks doing, because he thought your feet and your hand muscles are the most important thing. And I agree with him. Now, I could have gone in there and lifted weights. I used to just be that guy that walked around talking to everybody, or I would be gone to the golf course. He just didn't require it. I'm sure, maybe Danny and Rex and Jesse Palmer and Doug, maybe some of those guys lifted, which they probably did because they're a lot bigger, stronger than I was. And a lot of it's my fault. But there was no requirement, I guess I could say, from the strength coach. All we had to do was do our jump rope and our basketball toss program, and then you were done for the day.
What do you think is the most important thing that a player can do after they've played a game? They're in recovery mode. What's the best way for you to reset yourself and get back on track, whether that's on the mental or the physical side?
Well, that's a good question. That's something that nowadays they got all kinds of stuff going on, and I don't even really know what it is. we'd go down to the training room. If you were banged up, they'd put you in the cold tub or the hot tub or something like that, ice and stem, things of that nature. Like I said, things have changed so much. Um, it's just, nowadays, like for quarterbacks, you see all these guys doing all these arm exercises and ice. And I didn't do any of that because we would throw 400 or 500 balls a day. And Coach Spurrier's philosophy was if you're throwing the ball correctly, your arm shouldn't hurt. If you're using your big muscles, which that's the way he taught to throw the football. So I never had arm issues. I didn't do any rotator cuff stuff in the weight room or in the training room because I never had those problems. I was fortunate because a lot of people do. So from a recovery standpoint, if my body was banged up, I would go to the training room and say, look, I'm hurting. What can y'all do? And it was usually ice and stem or get in the ice tub.
So you've never been in a hyperbaric chamber, I would assume.
No. No idea what it is.
It's a spaceship. They've gotten all of these training facilities now. You've accomplished a lot in your playing days, leading the SEC in passing, 2-time SEC Player of the Year. You won an SEC championship, made it to the NFL. When you look back, what among those things or something I didn't list means the most to you?
Oh, wow. Well, there's a lot. I mean, to play as long as I did, I'm fortunate because the NFL career is, 2.5 years for most players. I wasn't paid like, I was one of those minimum salary guys, which is still a great living. But to be able to last and have coaches on different rosters believe that, I was a good teammate or I could be their starter or their backup, I would help other players. I kind of took a coaching mentality on most of the teams I was on in the NFL. But obviously, the 2 SEC Player of the Years mean a lot because there's only a handful of players to ever play in the Southeastern Conference to do that. I think there's 7 players. I think one Herschel was the only 3-time SEC Player of the Year. But it goes to show you I was coached well and had really good players around me. So it's not just an award for me; it's for all my teammates as well. But that was pretty cool. And being Coach Spurrier's first quarterback and never losing in the swamp as the only Florida quarterback to never lose a home game, I kind of hang my hat on that.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a good one. All right, let's wrap with this. We've got a lot of really good quarterbacks in the NFL today. Early on in the season, seems like a lot of them are struggling. Is there somebody that you watch week to week or somebody that you're watching to start the 2024 season that you just can't get enough of as a quarterback nerd, somebody that grew up understanding play calls, play sheets, and all of that, and someone who played the position and at the NFL level? Who do you geek out over as you watch them on Sundays?
Well, it's the quarterbacks, but I love play calling. Nothing gets me more excited than schemes, designs, creativity. And between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan, they're phenomenal when it comes to that. Quarterback play, obviously everybody's amazed at what Pat Mahomes does. I think when it's all said and done, he's probably going to be – he may break Brady's record for Super Bowl appearances. The smoothest, easiest thrower of the football to me is Joe Burrow. I mean, the ball just comes out of his hands so naturally, catchable football. Those two – I like watching Josh Allen. He plays a way that I couldn't play because he's a big, strong runner. But the young kids, I think C.J. Stroud's a phenomenal thrower of the football. I'm anxious to watch, Jaden Daniels. He was incredible in college. I think he's going to be a great pro. And I think Caleb Williams will end up being pretty good. But I would say, Burrow and Mahomes, I just like the way they play.
Do you think Bryce Young is broken? He just got benched for Andy Dalton. It was for a rough stretch to start his career.
Bryce was a phenomenal college player. He's very small. I don't care what they have him listed. I bet he's about 5'10", 5'11", maybe, and he's very, very small and fragile. That league is tough when you're little because, I played in the National Football League at about 100, 195 pounds, and I took a beating. He's on a bad football team. They're horrible. I don't know if it's his fault. Maybe it'd be good for him to watch a little bit. But I think Bryce Young's a very good football player. Probably needs to be in the right system for him.
Shane Matthews is a Gator Hall of Famer, one of the great players in the history of the program, and the host of the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Shane, thanks so much for the time. I really enjoyed the chat. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's edition of the Draft Academy podcast. Back at it next week.